the president not accepting there is a problem. And one thing that I personally observed, and I'm sure many observed at the SONA, was accountability, where this message didn't come strong from the president, taking accountability for all these problems that Ahmed Mansour is talking about for you.
Indeed, the president is refusing to lead. He's refusing to take responsibility for the failures of his government. He's refusing to take the responsibility of his own cabinet. You'll recall that there's a minister who left for the USA mid 2022. It's been more than 7 months now, where you have a minister of employment and employment and labor, also doubling as a minister for public service. Now, the Minister of Employment and Labor is already failing in his own portfolio, but the president is refusing to employ a capable minister for the other one. He'd rather have another minister act in that position so that he can deal with whatever political consideration that he has. Whereas a person that is taking South Africa seriously would ensure that you do not have ministries that are incapacitated. You do not have ministries that are basically dysfunctioning, ministries that do not have political heads. There's absolutely no reason for a ministry not to have a political head for over 7 months. That one, it is not acceptable. But at the root of these problems that we face, perhaps one of the questions that we need to ask, obviously looking at the conduct and the actions of the president and other people, is that do these leaders or do these people that are occupying these positions of being presidents and ministers actually have the interest of resolving these problems? Because if you look at the nature of the problems that we face in our country, you do not even have a sense that there are people that are actually serious. There are people that are concerned about actually solving those problems. I'll take, for example, the issue of illegal mining. We've had illegal mining for years in our country, to an extent whereby there were even 8 women that were brutally raped in our country. But ask yourself a question: has there been any thorough intervention by the government to say we've got an elite police unit that we've dispatched to go around the illegal mining hotspots to actually deal with the illegal miners? Look at the issue of the porous borders. And it is known for a fact that when people come to the country illegally, they pose a security risk. And even before we go to the security risk, when you're talking about governance, you need to know that you've got 60 million people in South Africa. They are spread across the 9 different provinces, the regions, the local municipalities, and the wards. Therefore, when you do your planning, you know that these 60 million people, these are the amount of resources that you are going to allocate for education, for healthcare, for policing, etc. But when you've got millions of undocumented people, you can't even govern correctly, because you can't even say for each and every 2,000 people, you are going to make sure there's a police station. You can't even plan to that extent, because you have people that are undocumented living in the country. You've got also the problems that are emanating there, which is the problems of criminality. We saw how it happened even with the likes of Bushiri. He commits a crime in South Africa. The only way that he's going to evade accountability and justice is to just leave South Africa, because he did not come here legally. There is no way in which we can make sure that he stays in our country and faces justice. Recently, there's a doctor from Kimberley, illegal immigrant, comes, practices illegally in our country, rapes a 17-year-old, gets to be arrested. After being arrested, when he needs to come to court, the magistrate gives him bail. From there, he does not come for the subsequent subsequent court hearings. Now, meaning South Africans will never receive justice if they are victims of crime from undocumented non-South Africans. So the point that I'm making here is that if you to observe the conduct, observe the lack of action from the government, they point to one conclusion that the leaders in government currently in our country do not have the political will to resolve the problems, are basically not interested. Look, for example, in Kenya, there was a problem of the infrastructure, which is vandalize your rail infrastructure, your cables, which is something we also see in our country, whereby electricity cables in some communities are vandalized. Currently, Metro Rail, PRASA cannot, function properly because the rails have been vandalized. And the source of that vandalism is that the scrap yards are used as a distribution point for all of that rail rails and cables that have been stolen. But what action have we seen from government that would give confidence that government is actually dealing with the problem? Because in Kenya, within 2 weeks after the government of Kenya picked up this is a problem, they immediately place a ban on the operations of all scrapyards. For that, within 2 weeks, they said no scrapyard must operate. And from there, they got to the root of the problem and they dealt with it. Now they're moving on, dealing with other problems. Come to South Africa. How many years have we heard about the issues of cable theft, of vandalism of our rails? So the point that I'm making here, and I want to get across, is that the government does not have the political will to solve the problems. That is the unfortunate reality.
Well, thank you for that, Vuyo. And also, Ahmed Manzoor, when one looks at the president, and I alluded to this in my introduction, talking about what defines us as South Africans. And